Hi, Ben Norcott here from theathletecoach.com. Last week I got asked two questions based around MAS running. The first question was, what is MAS running? So MAS running is interval running based on a time trial result. Now, the second question was, how do you calculate interval distances for MAS running based from a time trial? For that, you actually need a spreadsheet that you enter in data, and then that generates your interval distances that you need to achieve. So let's briefly go into what MAS running is. So MAS stands for Maximal Aerobic Speed. Now, the idea behind MAS running is you conduct a time trial, and the most popular one used at the moment in team sports such as rugby league and rugby union is the 1200 metre time trial. So the time trial works in two ways. It gives you a result on someone's aerobic capacity, and secondly, it gives you an opportunity to use that time result to generate running intervals that can be progressed in terms of speed and reduced in terms of distance over time to give you an aerobic increase. And then also, if you really start using intervals correctly, you increase your aerobic capacity, but then you actually start increasing repeat speed ability as you increase the intensity and lower the recovery time between bouts. So hopefully when you go to do a second test, you'll see a massive improvement in the time of the 1.2, but you've also increased someone's aerobic capacity and their repeat effort ability. Now, what I've done is actually created a couple of whiteboard demonstrations for you. The first one will be on how to conduct the test. Okay, so using this whiteboard, I'm going to give a demonstration on how you can conduct this test with low staff numbers or even by yourself. Now, make sure you've got lines marked up at 0, 20, 40 and 60 and measure those out correctly with a tape. That way you can always have a really good reference for when you test them next time. Now, explain to the athletes how the test works. The tester will yell out, go, that starts the test, and the athletes will have to run from the 0 to the 20 and back. Same for the 40, same for the 60, and then they repeat that continuously without any rest 5 times in a row, and that equals your 1200 meters. Now, if you are by yourself, and you don't have a large coaching group and you want to have really accurate times, good little trick is set up a person or a video camera here and press record when you start the test. A couple of little things you may want to look at. Make sure you've got a really good view down that 0 meter line, right down to this last athlete down here, where you can actually identify that athlete, because you'll need that later on. Now, once the last person has actually finished going over the line, you can stop the recording. Always press start on the recording when you say go for the test. Another little thing you may need to look at is make sure that the video camera you're using has minutes and seconds running, where you can clearly identify that. That way, when the test is being conducted, the person here as a tester can be yelling out times for the athletes so they have immediate feedback on how they've gone. Also later you'll be able to look back on that video with the time and the seconds and enter data into a spreadsheet without needing to have a whole lot of extra paperwork. The video recording itself acts as your paperwork until you hit the spreadsheet. So welcome back. What I've done is put some dummy data in here. So you've done your 1.2 and you've actually entered in some important data. So you've entered in the name of the athlete. So this one here is test 1 all the way down. You'll be able to put in 40 athletes in this spreadsheet. And then you've entered their time, and this person took 5 minutes to do the 1.2. Over here, this automatically creates, this little column here called meters per second, creates how many meters per second by using a formula it took that athlete to complete the test. So over that 5 minutes, they were averaging 4 meters per second to complete the 1.2 time trial. Now this is very important that formulas create how many meters per second, because from this meters per second you'll work out percentages of that meters per second, and then you can times it by the time that you would like them to run. So in this first example here, we have 92 meters that we want them to achieve in 20 seconds, which is 110% of their mass. Also with this, we're only going to give them 10 seconds rest before they return. Now the sets and reps that you do are up to you. I do have some little tips later on for how to calculate these for those that would like to know. Now, why MAS or MAS has sometimes not the best name for some people is they feel that the workload isn't huge, that it's easy to achieve. And I tend to agree with them. And a workaround this is either minusing 17.5% off their actual time, or, as I've found, adding 17.5% to the actual meters per second. Either way, you're going to come to the same outcome. Now, this is why for years I preferred the 1K time trial, because it was about 20% less distance, therefore it was an actual faster time trial. Now, with the popularity of the 1.2, when I'm trying to compare data to other teams or athletes and to give comparisons to coaches, I use the 1.2 purely for this time, but I use these formulators when generating workload. Another little thing I've been able to do over the years is to work out some shuttle and some up-down shuttle distances. Rather than just a boring straight line, this way we're actually calculating shuttle distances that someone should go out to and back using MAS formulas. Now, I'll let those that want to take a look at the formulas to create that. I've used these over, it's almost 8 years now, and I'll keep constantly refine them, and I'm very happy with where they sit currently in terms of making the workload very challenging but achievable. I found sometimes when I've over-predicted the speed that people weren't making the mark, when I've under-predicted it, people found it quite easy. But over those years, I've been able to manipulate that to where I need it. Now, what I'd like to do here is show you in this current spreadsheet, this is what I'd recommend for week 1 or 2, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off at 110%. Now, when you fill in this spreadsheet above with the actual time, this spreadsheet below will come and give you some information as well. Straight away, automatically, the athletes will be put down into this list, and as well as their times if you filled the little form up above. And again, it's calculating their meters per second plus that 17.5% increase. And what we've got here is a different time. So we've got 15 seconds on and 15 seconds off at 120%. And again, it has the straight line, shuttle distance, and up-down distance. And further along down here as well, so for weeks 5 and 6, again, this will automatically fill in for you. We've got, again, the athletes, the time, the meters per second calculations, and then we've got a 10 second on, 10 seconds off at 130%. Now, I found over the time that trying to get an up-down shuttle at 130% is on 10 seconds on and off is probably a little bit too challenging and could potentially create some issues in terms of workloads because you're looking at 2 very hard accelerations getting off the ground with short periods of time. So I've found the straight line and the shuttle distance very good to use. Okay, let's move on to how you actually conduct these intervals on a whiteboard so you've got a visual presentation of how that works. So now it's time to do some MAS interval running. What I've got here is a little demonstration of, just say this was a straight line task. They had 20 seconds on and 10 seconds off. So I've grouped them into this group here, can get 91 meters, 88, 85 and 80. And that's based on their spreadsheet. you can actually go down to each individual if you like, or you can put them within a range of 5, 4, whatever you deem's important. That's up to you. Now, I'll just put 2 people in each group so you understand. Now, you as the coach will say go. The athletes will run out. They've got 20 seconds to reach their mark. You want them to get there. They can either get there a second early or exactly on time would be perfect. Like that. And you can see that 20 seconds, 15 or 10, however long, whatever interval you're using, that's their actual goal to reach in that period of time. Then they all get the same rest, which is 10 seconds in this case. And go, and they have 20 seconds to come back. Everyone arriving at the exact same time. Okay. And again, 10 seconds rest, and then that process is repeated. Now let's say you were looking at the shuttle, and we'll just use the top here as a demonstration, and they had to reach 44 meters for their shuttle. So in 20 seconds they've got to go from here, up and back, in 20 seconds having 10 seconds rest on the coach's command. Now you've done that interval for how many sets and reps you feel is important, and then you've come down to the up-down shuttle. So again, the same process, and each group will have their own individual distance and times to reach. Times are exactly the same, sorry, individual distances. So they run out, get down on the ground, chest on the ground, and have to get back within 20 seconds. You can see that adds an extra element as well. So you've got the straight line for 20 seconds, the shuttle, and then the up-down. And it just adds a little extra element to the conditioning as well. Now let's look a little deeper into the spreadsheet. What I've done here is I've actually unhidden a few columns that I have here. And this is for people that want to look at a few more metrics and compare some metrics to GPS. So if you're looking at adding conditioning, you want to see what types of workloads it would measure if you're using GPS metrics as a way. That way you can actually understand the conditioning demands placed upon your athletes. Without even using GPS, you have a few metrics that you can take a look at. Now, first of all, for each of these areas, so if we did 8 reps at 92 meters on 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, so it would calculate the end result for us for that set, which is 735. And the same for the shuttle. Over here, the shuttle is calculated if we did the 8 reps here, it would equal 661 meters. And again for the up-down. Now, if we're looking at using a different number of reps per set, we can simply calculate it up here. So I could say, let's look at 10, punch in 10, and then for our planning, we know that 10 would create 919 meters for 10 reps of the straight line. I'll just move this back a little bit. Also over here, we've got calculations of how many meters per minute. So meters per minute is a common use sign of intensity when using GPS. So the straight line is causing 184 meters per minute when we're looking at that interval. The shuttle is 165. The up-down is 147 meters per minute. And of course, this is all based on that 5-minute time trial result. So all this load is calculated individual based on the calculations we have in terms of distance that they have to reach in timeframes. Also across here, really important thing to look at is the mean meters per second. So because we've actually increased the running demand, we want to take a look at, are we doing too little high speed, too much high speed, and you can make those judgment calls based on whatever decision making you deem important. So across here for the straight line, we can see that it's 4.59 meters per second from the 92 meter straight line. And for the shuttle, it's 4.13. And for the up down, it's 3.67 meters per minute as a mean. And that's calculated across all the athletes down there. I've actually hidden that in there, but if you want to take a deeper look and get some serious metrics for your planning, that's happening in that spreadsheet for you as well. So I wanted to give you some training ideas on how you could conduct MAS in your training. So a simple way is at the end of your training session, you do all your MAS running at the end to create good mental toughness. The key thing here is to watch that you don't increase the amount of high-speed running to a huge level if players aren't conditioned. So this is where you'd want to use the slower speeds at first and then build up into it. And again, you can take a look at the meters per minute and the amount of high-speed running in terms of meters per second that each drill would place on the athletes, and use that wisely on where you feel is best. It's a great way for developing some mental toughness at training sessions at the very end of training that translates into finishing halves well and finishing games well with some high intensity efforts. Another way, which is quite a good way, is combining skills and MAS. So first you would use a new skill, then a straight line running. Then you would use a second skill that their athletes are okay at, but it's still fairly new, that you're just learning under slight fatigue. Then you could go to shuttle MAS and return to a skill that you want the athletes to conduct under fatigue. And this could be a skill that they're quite good at, but you want to see how it breaks down under fatigue and place extra pressure on them. Then you could go to the off the deck MAS and then return. And the last skill that you would practice is something that the athletes are quite good at, but you want them to execute under high levels of fatigue so that you can understand where they break down or place that pressure on them to perform under huge amounts of fatigue. And at the end of the day, that's what wins games and competitions, is being able to execute under fatigue. Now, the next way is actually combining those. So a skills coach can have one group, an S&C can have the other group. And what you do is the S&C is working on MAS work or some conditioning work, and the skills coach working on skills. And then you keep swapping these groups backwards and forwards to each other so that you've got smaller coaching numbers, which helps out the skills coach because you get better quality. Also, the S&C coach can start looking at what type of MAS do I put for what group. If you've got type 5 forwards in rugby union, you might go, I'll just use the off the deck every time I get the type 5s into the MAS. While if the other extreme is the outside backs, you might go, well, we actually need some more high speed meters and meters gained at greater velocity. So I'll use workloads that create greater velocity over those high speed meters. So you can start matching the MAS work or the conditioning work that best suits that group of athletes that you have once they're separated from skills. Hopefully you've got a lot of information out of that. You might need to watch this a couple of times if it's quite new information to you. If you'd like some coaching by me that's individual and tailored to your needs, or if you're a team and you'd like some help planning or working out your training loads or anything to do with a team strength and conditioning, please contact me with the link below. If you'd like the spreadsheet, I've got a link down below that too, so an opportunity for you to purchase that as well. I'll see you on the next video.